Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. In this video, we are looking at the Week 3 NFL First Look picks for DraftKings and FanDuel. We will be digging into the matchups, the mispriced, overpriced players, what teams look the best to stack, all the good stuff as we approach Week 3. So let's get started. As always, I appreciate if you guys hit the like button. If you enjoy the video, subscribe. I appreciate all the love you guys have been showing. If you want to join us, you can visit the website, dfsprocess.net. Week 2 was not as good as Week 1, at least on DraftKings. FanDuel was solid for the most part. Cashed on the main and then the showdowns for FanDuel. DraftKings missed on the main, cashed on the Sunday night showdown, missed on the Monday night showdown. So hopefully, we can get right back on track this week. So let's get started. Looking at the quarterback position, you have Kyler Murray's $8,300. I don't think that many people will go to Kyler Murray in this spot, mainly because you have so many good quarterbacks right below him that are in better game scripts. Like, this is in Jacksonville, so maybe they happen to keep it a bit closer. But if Arizona gets out to the lead, then Kyler Murray is probably not going to be throwing a ton. He has 2 rushing touchdowns on the year, but he hasn't been running a lot. He has 2 rushing touchdowns and in only 10 attempts, so that's not really sustainable. But I do love the fact that he's taking a lot of shots downfield. We have Patrick Mahomes, highest total for the Chiefs on the slate, as nobody's really shocked by that. They get a date against Justin Herbert and that pretty poor Chargers defense, although they did hold up somewhat nicely against the Cowboys. But Mahomes, this offense is just high flying. They probably would have been 2-0 if Edwards-Helaire did not fumble that at the end of the game. But Mahomes hasn't done anything bad except for that interception that he kind of just threw up there. But overall, he's been great. He's thrown for almost 700 yards the first 2 games. 3 touchdown passes in each one. Now he gets a matchup at home against this pretty poor Chargers defense, especially in the secondary. Gotta like Mahomes if you wanted to pay up for a quarterback. I like Lamar Jackson a lot this week. I like Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen a ton. Lamar is 78. I think this game will be closer than people expect, at least because of all the injuries Baltimore has, not only on offense but on defense. They're really banged up. So the Detroit Lions, they showed they can move the ball a little bit. They were doing good in the first half, and then they scored nothing in the second half against the Packers. But they can move the ball a little bit, and with all the injuries on the Ravens, I think that if this game is pretty close, we'll see Lamar Jackson, still have to work somewhat hard in the second half. They'll probably still have the lead by like 7 or 10 points, but I think it'll be within like 2 or 3 scores for the game, so they will still have to be running good plays for Lamar and having him throw and run. So I like that price tag on him. He's usually going to be around the 8,000 range, so which he is, but he's a little bit cheaper this week. Yeah, Wilson and Josh Allen here. I kind of prefer Josh Allen, just saving the discount. I think Wilson will be popular, and I don't mind it because he's been good this year, and this matchup looks solid in Minnesota. But Wilson, they still like to run the football a little bit more in Seattle, so if you want to go to a team that loves to just throw the football, that is the Bills in this high-octane passing offense. He's 7,000. That's nothing. That's something we didn't expect. He was looking like an MVP candidate heading into the year after his great year last year. His first 2 games hasn't looked the best, but 35-0 win. The defense showed up big time against Miami once Tua went out. And then Pittsburgh's a tough matchup. But now he gets a matchup against Washington at home. Washington defense looks pretty susceptible to some big plays, as we saw the first couple weeks. They're not as good in the secondary as we thought. Their front is decent, but Josh Allen is not. You're not really worried about him getting sacked. He's able to move around in the pocket back there, and even if he does have to move around, I think that might make him, run the football and run with the football a little bit. So I really like Josh Allen. As we approach the 6K range, you have Stafford, Herbert, Brady headlining the 6K range. Brady is just not human. 9 touchdowns on the season already. He's thrown for over 650 yards. We know he has great receivers. This is the toughest matchup that he's had. This Rams defense is solid. Facing Dallas and Atlanta the first 2 weeks, nothing to be scared of in those 2 matchups. But I would expect this game to be a shootout. Both teams have really good offenses. So if you wanted to go to Brady, you can, but he's just not somebody that I would play at that price tag. I'd rather go up to Josh Allen for the rushing upside or spend down a little bit for maybe you can go with some of these cheaper quarterbacks that have similar upside. That might, I think Brady might be popular this week if people are just looking at the box score, which you can't really blame them. But Herbert's another guy that I like. He's $6,500. this team just has to throw the football a lot. They've been in fast-paced match, or they like to play a little bit up-tempo. At times, he's thrown 41 and 47 times the first 2 games. And Herbert, the refs just really were annoying in that Dallas game for if you were rooting for Herbert, if you had him on DFS, because he had a couple of the touchdowns called back. The one late in the fourth quarter to the tight end, Jared Cook, that one definitely sucked because that penalty came really late. But Herbert, $6,500. He really doesn't make a ton of mistakes back there. He has 3 interceptions on the year, but we know the upside that and the talent that Herbert has. This game, they're going to have to throw the football a lot. I would not be shocked to see this number be about 50. He's thrown for a ton of yards, so that's great. The touchdowns will come. If you're throwing for this many yards, the touchdowns will definitely come. And in this type of high-scoring game, the Chiefs can't really stop anybody. Baltimore was able to move the ball up and down the field all game, especially in the second half against them. So I think Herbert in that offense will be able to put up at least like 25 points. So right now I have Herbert penciled in here at that price tag. If you wanted to go cheaper, in the low 6K range, you got some injuries down here, but I think some of the 5K options look decent. A lot of injuries at quarterback here. Carson Wentz, 2 sprained ankles. Somehow he managed to sprain both of his ankles. I don't know if he will. We'll have to wait and see. It's only Tuesday I'm making this video, so we'll have to see if these guys are in or not. I would expect Mayfield to play, Carr to play, Roethlisberger to play. I don't know about Wentz. Teddy Bridgewater has looked impressive as a member of the Broncos. He's just a really solid player. Doesn't like to take a lot of unnecessary risks, so he's pretty safe with the football. Hasn't turned it over yet. And he hasn't run a ton, but we know if given the chance, he has to. I mean, if he has to run to escape, you can. And maybe at the goal line, you can sneak one in if they need to. Good matchup against the Jets. So I like Bridgewater at that price tag. Other guys in the 5K range are like maybe this is a week that if you were looking to play Matt Ryan, I wouldn't mind it. This week against the Giants. First couple of matchups, the Bucs defense is not good particularly, but their front is very good, and Atlanta has one of the worst offensive lines in the league. So Matt Ryan just was like getting faced with a ton of pressure all game. He did throw for 300 yards, 2 touchdowns, but 3 picks. The pressure got to him in some of those. And then the Eagles defense, they so far looked a lot better than we thought they were heading into the year, so they only put up 6 points in that one. But that's a Philly team that held San Fran to just 17 points. So I think the Eagles defense definitely solid this year. So Ryan gets a really good matchup against the Giants. It's on the road, but it's a good price tag. If you wanted to pair him with like Calvin Ridley, who we'll get to, he's just so cheap, or even Kyle Pitts, might be the week to do it. If Dalvin's not able to play this week, you can look to Justin Fields as a pure value play. And then that is basically it. We'll see if some of these quarterbacks get like a spot start like Brissett. Maybe you can look to him. But that's pretty much it at the quarterback position. For running back, you don't have Kamara on this slate, so you have Derrick Henry. What a beast performance by Henry. Most of that coming in the second half. He now has 9 catches on the year, so that is impressive. He's going up against a Colts defense that he absolutely tore apart. He had 3 touchdowns against them last year in one of the meetings. I think it was the most recent meeting. And Tennessee is just going to have to probably just rely on Henry as a bell cow. If Wentz isn't able to play, then Tennessee will probably win this game easily, and they might get the lead by like a couple touchdowns. They might just give the ball to Henry in the second half, so that would be great if you wanted to play him. I like Henry more than Kamara. I like him similarly to Dalvin Cook. Cook now gets to face Seattle, who just gave up that monster performance to Henry. So if you wanted to play Cook this week, you could. He was banged up a little bit last game, or in the middle of the game. He still finished with 24 touches, but that could be something to monitor. I think I like Henry probably the best out of the top options. 7K range, I love Austin Ekeler. So mentioned in the last video that didn't expect him not to get any targets again, and he ended up getting 9. So who knows what that number is going to be. But for what we know about Austin Ekeler and his career, he's probably going to get like 6+ targets in most competitive games that it tends to be high scoring, which this game definitely has all the abilities and all the makings of it being a high scoring game. So Ekeler looks to be one of my favorite options. I like him more than Nick Chubb. Jonathan Taylor, this will be important if Wentz is not playing, then I don't want to play him against a team that they'll probably be down and they'll have to throw a lot. If Wentz is in, then I like that price tag a lot at $6,700, but this game should be more competitive. And he hasn't been super involved in the he was involved first game in the passing. Second game wasn't involved too much. You would like to see him get a little bit more Yards, he's kind of struggled so far, but the Rams, very tough defense to run on. And Seattle probably could have done better in that one. But if Wentz is in, I think Taylor looks pretty appealing. Now we get to probably some of the players that everybody's going to be talking about. Saquon Barkley is $6,500 this week. It's the best spot that he's had. Denver defense, very tough. Washington front is good. The secondary is not that good. But he did play a lot more snaps in week 2. Now they played Thursday night, that game, so he has like 10 days to get ready for this one. So this Atlanta defense can't really stop anybody. If you wanted to play Barkley, this is the week to do that. Josh Jacobs is, quote, very questionable. So if he's not going to play, then you can look to Drake if you wanted to. Mixon, he was on the field for a ton. I don't think any other player got touches in the backfield besides Mixon. Tough matchup against the Bears. He didn't do much, but he's getting a lot of usage. And this matchup is still somewhat tough against Pittsburgh's. But you could look to him at that cheap $6K price tag if nobody's looking to him. And then Chris Carson has kind of skipped over him, but I don't mind him. If everybody's going to Barkley, you can go to Carson because they do like to use him a lot in the red zone, and I believe they're still dealing with injuries to the other running backs, Rashard Penny, etc. Collins did get like 1 carry, so we'll see if Penny's able to play or not. Even if he does, he's not going to get more than a handful of work. Some guys that I like that are cheaper at running back, we have DeAndre Swift at just $5,800. This game plan for the Lions was pretty poor. They had the lead against Green Bay. They were moving the ball, but then they just stopped using Swift for much of the second half. He got some work done in garbage time, but I was shocked that he wasn't utilized more. This matchup here against Baltimore, they have some holes in the passing game that you can look to just with the secondary so banged up with injuries. Swift, they will probably end up trailing in this game like they will most games, so they'll have to resort to the passing game a lot in the second half. But Swift is a guy that can get targets and can do a lot after the catch. We saw him jump over the defender last night. So I would expect him to get probably like 15 plus touches every single week. He only got 12 against the Packers, but that's something I don't think they want to do going forward. Henderson is questionable. We'll see if he does play. I don't want to play him. That is a very tough matchup. You have Tyson Williams, who's looked very good for the Ravens. If you wanted to go to a cheaper 5K range or like a cheaper running back option, Williams makes some sense because even though they have 3 running backs in that backfield, Williams has been the best running back just by the eye test and looking at the numbers. He's the guy that will be out there in passing situations. And this matchup is so good against Detroit that I would definitely not mind looking to Williams. If you wanted to probably fade like a chalky Saquon or somebody like that, I think Williams makes some sense. Or you can play Saquon in the flex. So going with these 3 right out of the gate. Some other guys that we can potentially look to are like Mike Davis, who's $5,100. We have Edmonds. He's kind of getting pricey more and more, but he's still affordable at $57. And then the cheap guys down here are like Clyde Edwards-Helaire at $48. Or you could go instead of Williams. If you wanted to go to Edwards-Helaire, you could. It's $4,800. The most highest scoring game of highest total team on the slate, the Chiefs. This is an enigma because this price tag somehow dropped by $2,000. I wish he was $60K or $6,500 again, so we didn't have to really consider him. But at this price tag, I think you have to consider him because even though he lost the fumble that cost him the game, he still was getting most of the work out of the backfield. They don't run the football a lot. He didn't also get any targets, but this matchup is different, and I would say that I would still bank on Edwards-Helaire probably getting at least double-digit touches, and at this price tag, maybe he happens to sneak one into the end zone or get a couple of catches. It's just pretty easy to pay off a $4,800 salary if he's utilized at least somewhat, and I'm hoping that he is. So I like these 2 cheaper running backs. I mentioned Tyson Williams. He's probably like another option that I like a lot in the 5K range. And then if you wanted to go to Saquon, you could do that at $65 or go to Carson in the flex. The wide receivers this week, so you have a bunch at the top with Hill against the Chargers after he was double covered for much of the game, didn't make an impact against the Ravens. Hopkins got all of his catches, I believe, on the first drive, and then did nothing after that. Stephon Diggs had the touchdown, but still only 8 targets, 4 catches for 60 yards. Winning by 35 will do that. Hopefully it's a more competitive game in this one. So they have to throw a lot more in the second half. And then Tyler Lockett, I mean, what has he done? Yeah, if you've been playing Lockett the first couple of games, you've probably been making a ton of money because he still hasn't been super popular in any of these games. Maybe that changes this week after what Minnesota's defense has allowed to happen the first 2 weeks. DK Metcalf's probably going to be super low owned if everybody's going to Lockett. And then Calvin Ridley, $7,000. That price tag is really good. That I will be taking advantage of that against the Giants defense that hasn't been able to really slow down any body so far. People have been able to move. I mean, Heineke looked like Drew Brees out there. And Matt Ryan hopefully can do the same if he's locked in on Calvin Ridley. He has 18 targets the first 2 games. Probably disappointing, but come somewhat different stories here. Ryan was throwing some picks in the second half, so they lost some possessions there. They put up 25 points against the Bucks, and then the Eagles did a good job defensively against him as well, except for that first drive where he had a couple of catches. But a big breakout game is coming for Ridley. Would not be shocked if it happens at all. In this one, his price tag has dropped from $79.75 to $7K. Before he has a huge game and his price tag increases again, might as well take a buy low on Ridley. And when he's priced similarly to Jefferson, who I do like, but I would rather play Ridley. Probably played Ridley over Metcalf, played Ridley over McLaurin, with the Bills having a very good defense, especially at the secondary position. Cooper Kupp, 68. I may hopefully played Cooper Kupp on Sunday. He was only 6K. His price tag has jumped up to 68. So I think he'll be popular this week again. Looks appealing, but you can also look to Robert Woods, who now is the gap has just significantly widened between the two. Last week they were only separated by $300. This week by $1,100. So I wouldn't mind going to Woods, especially if everybody's going to be playing Kupp this week. I got the good game out of Kupp, so I got 2 good games out of Kupp, so I kind of am gonna let his ownership go up and then maybe pivot elsewhere. Mike Williams, he's a different player this year with being healthy and playing with Justin Herbert for the full year. 22 targets the first 2 weeks. That is more than Calvin Ridley. And 2 touchdowns as well. He's been utilized in the red zone. He got that 1 catch, 1 screen pass that he just bulldozed away into the end zone last week. I like him a ton. But when you have Keenan Allen just $200 more, I will have to side with Keenan Allen at that price tag. He's $6,600. Price tag has dipped a bit. He has yet to find the end zone. I think that will change this week with them probably putting up at least 3 or 4 touchdowns against the Chiefs. And you're going to get a bunch of targets, good chance to hit over 100 yards. So Keenan Allen's probably one of my favorites at that price tag. I like A.J. Brown to bounce back. Julio had a big week last week. Brown probably could have had a big week, but only caught 3 of 9 targets. He was dropping a ton of balls. Good matchup against the Colts. Deontay Johnson is questionable. He hurt his knee on the last play of the game, so hopefully he plays. If he does, he looks fine. Roethlisberger loves to just throw to him a ton. Another double-digit target game, which you're going to expect. And then Mike Evans, 2 touchdown performance. Of course, Antonio Brown disappeared. He had 1 catch on 3 targets. One of the 3 is probably going to bust every single week. You just got to pick which one. This week, with good price tag on Brown, I would probably go Godwin as my favorite play at that $6,100 price tag. In the 5K range, Sterling Shepard, he's the number 1 receiver, that even though they paid Kenny Golladay to be. Shepard is just locked in heavy targets from Daniel Jones. I love Marquise Brown. If you look back from the second half of last year to now, he's just been really good in terms of getting into the end zone. He has a ton of touchdowns during that stretch. He had I think 75% of his touchdowns came after week 8 of last week, and he has touchdowns in each of the first 2 games. 10 targets, 6 catches in each game. Lamar Jackson is looking to Marquise Brown's way a ton. Detroit, their secondary is pretty dreadful. I wouldn't be shocked if Marquise Brown breaks another one. Price tag didn't increase at all, even though he's had a couple of big games. So it's because they played on, maybe because the pricing was out before that Sunday night game. But I like that. I like that Marquise Brown play a ton at that price tag at 56. You can play if you want to pair him with Lamar Jackson, you can do that. But in the high 5K range, when he's similarly priced to Kenny Golladay, Claypool, Pittman, who did have a huge week, like Sammy Watkins, just give me Marquise Brown every single day. Other guys in the 5K range are the cheaper end. You have Ruggs, who gives you a ton of GPP upside if Carr's in. Now had a 60-yard catch And Derek Carr is looking good so far, throwing the deep ball and throwing for a ton of yards. Especially if there's no Josh Jacobs, he'll probably have to throw. They'll probably let him throw more. 4K range, Rondale Moore's price tag has jumped to 5K, so he's been awesome, and he's getting more and more work as a result. His price tag has jumped $1,000 in each game, so I don't think we're getting a great value at that price tag, so I'm not that thrilled with paying 5K for him. I would probably look to like Marvin Jones, just with them being at home, and he's played a big role with Trevor Lawrence. We have Will Fuller making his debut. He's strictly a tournament option, but he's down to 47. He might be limited after missing some training camp and not playing the first couple weeks. But even if he plays like 50% of the snaps, there's a chance he could break a big one. And then just probably mixing and matching some of these guys if you play a bunch of teams. Like, I would not play. I think Waddle gets a downgrade with Fuller back. Slayton should have had 2 touchdowns last week. And then they did see some decent performances. Or at least a good start for Sanders, but then didn't really carry over. There's a lot of mouths to feed on the Bills, especially with Diggs not really jumping off and having huge performances yet. I would expect, Diggs to probably have the first huge performance out of the wide receiving core. The 3K range, you got Hardman. I like the price tag on him a lot. He had 8 targets. We saw Robinson get that touchdown. We saw Pringle get that touchdown. But also Tyreek Hill was held in check, and that's probably not going to happen every single week. I don't mind playing Hardman, but if he is a super popular value play, then you can easily pivot to like Cephas if there's still no Tyrell Williams. He looks good so far, and they're going to have to throw the football. To somebody. Cephas looks to make a big role out of that. Dyami Brown from the Redskins, 6 targets, 4 targets. Had a couple of red zone targets from Heineke. Tougher matchup in this one, but if McLaurin has his hands full, then you could see Brown get some more work. Osborne is probably the cheaper guy to look at, like compared to Rondale Moore and Osborne both have had huge weeks so far. Only difference is Osborne's price tag has only risen by 500, whereas Moore's has gone up by 2,000. So I would take Moore, or right now I'd take Osborne all day over Moore. And that's about it. I think Moore is probably the cheapest I'm looking at wide receiver. Tight end, you got all the good tight ends, so I'm not looking to take a punt play on any of these 2K options or any of these like low 3K options. I mean, when you have Kelsey, Waller, Gronk, Hawkinson, Pitts, Fant, even Andrews I'll throw in there, like all these top end guys on the slate, probably at least half of these guys are going to have north of 15, maybe even 20 plus. Hawkinson has looked amazing. We know Goff loved to throw the 2 tight ends in back when he was with the Rams. Hasn't changed at all. Hawkinson should probably be looking at another plus 20 fantasy point game. You have Pitts, $4,900. He also looks very good if you wanted to look to him. He got some better. He got less targets, but he made the more out of the targets that he did get, breaking off a couple of nice runs after the catch. Higbee was on the field the whole game, but he didn't get anything except for 1 catch, so still a little bit risky. If I had to rank the top end, obviously Kelsey is 1, Waller is 2. Gronk, I'm not going to think he's going to have 2 touchdowns every single week, so I'd rather go to Hawkinson or probably Pitts, especially if Gronk gets super popular. Because he did have 2 touchdowns, but he only had 4 catches. In the first week, he did have 8 catches, so that was big. But normally, you're probably not going to see double-digit targets out of Gronk, whereas you're going to see double digits for Kelsey, Waller, probably Hawkinson, maybe Pitts. So that is the tight end core. If I just had to plug one in right now, probably just plug in Pitts. I might go to Hawkinson, but having 2 Detroit players might not be ideal, so I'll have Pitts for now. And it leaves you with $4,400 left. Let's just see if we make some sort of like mock build here. If you go with the Titans, you have 64. Go plug in Mike Williams or Saquon or somebody like that. So I think the Titans defense, if there is no Carson Wentz, they're just going to be a cash lock. Other top end defenses that you could look to are the Broncos against Wilson, who is probably going to throw more interceptions, probably going to get sacked a bunch. Broncos are definitely the top defense. The mid-range defenses you have are possibly the Browns. If there is no Andy Dalton for the Bears and they have to go with Fields, you have The Saints potentially against a rookie quarterback, although Mac Jones hasn't really looked that much like a rookie. He's just been making good, safe decisions. And then the Cardinals, I would look to them against Jacksonville, against Trevor Lawrence. But for now, I think the Titans have to be the top of the list until we get word on Carson Wentz. So that's about it for the DraftKings side. I'll quickly touch on the FanDuel pricing. All right, so on FanDuel, first thing that jumps off the page is Saquon's price tag is ridiculous. So if you keep scrolling, you would expect Saquon to pop up. You see Najee Harris here, you see Josh Jacobs, you see Taylor, Montgomery, Mixon, even see Edwards-Helaire, Edmonds, Williams, Henderson. Get all through all these guys, and then you get to Saquon. Same price tag as basically same price tag as Cordero Patterson, same price tag as Melvin Gordon. So on FanDuel, definitely don't see how you don't start a cash lineup with Barkley. Even it's going to be somewhat difficult to fade in tournaments. And then I do like getting to Swift, although he is kind of already priced up. So on DraftKings, Swift looks a lot better. Like you can get to Mixon over Swift. You can get to EKELER over Swift on FanDuel. So definitely do something like that. I mean, I definitely look to EKELER over Carson, over Swift, over Harris. The quarterback position, you have Kyler at 9K. He's super expensive. But all these quarterbacks are in just such good spots. FanDuel, it's a little bit easier to pay up for one. So you do have Herbert at 75. If you wanted to stack him with EKELER, do a double stack pair like him with Mike Williams as well. You do have a decent price tag on, like, Winston is cheap at 68, but you never know what you're going to get out of Winston, as we saw last game. Fields, if he starts, he's 65. It gives you upside with his legs, so that would be interesting. But for right now, I'll probably be able to get to Lamar Jackson on FanDuel. You can play him by himself, or you can play him with Hollywood Brown, who on FanDuel, you get to see some of the difference. That's why I like looking at both sites, because you can kind of see who's mispriced on which site and who is a better play on the other one. So like Ridley looks way better on DraftKings at 7K than he does on FanDuel, where he's more expensive than Diggs. He's even more expensive. Well, probably should be more expensive than like Thielen, Jefferson, but he's more expensive than like Metcalf by a lot, and like even going down to like Keenan Allen, who's way cheaper, AJ Brown. So I like Ridley still, but it's a little bit of a different story when he's a third most expensive receiver on on FanDuel than he is like probably like the 10th most on DraftKings, or the 7th most expensive. I just checked. But at wide receiver, I like Marquise Brown still on both sites. You get him at a $6,600 price tag, so he is somewhat expensive. If you don't want to play him, you can look to like getting to Keenan Allen or going to AJ Brown instead. But I think I can get to Marquise Brown with Keenan Allen. You have both of these Tennessee guys kind of staring you right in the face. If you think it's going to be a Derrick Henry game, then you can fade them. Courtland Sutton had a huge performance. He's priced up to 69. And then we'll have to take a wait and see approach on some of these questionable pieces, mainly Deontay Johnson. But I think he'll be able to play. And then for cheaper 5K options here, you have like Chase is 59. He's looked good the first couple weeks. He's had 2 long touchdown grabs. You have Moore at 56, so he looks a little bit better. And then to see the price tag on some of the more cheaper receivers in the low 5K range, you have Sanders at 52, Cephas at like, these are just kind of like GPP plays that you throw some darts in. Hardman is 54. So you don't see that many. Like last week we had Mike Williams at 56. He was a great play on FanDuel. But this week they've done a little bit of a better job making sure there's not like one obvious play in this range that looks like you want to jam into all your cash lineups and plug like 40% in tournaments. Mike Williams is still pretty nicely priced at $6,000, so maybe you can play him over Keenan Allen if you're kind of strapped for some cash. But I do like going with these guys here. Leaves you at 62.75, so we'll be able to pay up for at least one other receiver or one other guy in the flex. Let's take a look at tight end, where you have Waller at 74, Hockenson is 63, Pitts is 62, and then Kelsey is 85. Those are the ones I'm really focused in on, those 4. If I had to make a bunch of teams, I would have a bunch with those guys in there and then mixing and matching on some of the rest. But I don't want to go to anybody in the low 5K at tight end here. Like Hooper hasn't done much. Cook, maybe. But if I'm playing Allen, I'm playing EKELER. I don't want to go overload on the Chargers side. So I'm looking at Waller. Kelsey has a top. You could even go with one of your tight ends in the flex just because there's not much of a difference playing Hockenson I think, at flex and getting to like some of these 6K options at receiver. So if I'm not going to play Swift on FanDuel, I might as well get to Hawkinson at $6,300. I think it's only $100 more than Pitts, who's looked a lot more involved in the offense. He's the number 1 option, whereas Pitts is the number 2. In Atlanta, maybe, yeah, he's going to be the number 2 for the whole year with Ridley there. But I like this kind of build. At least with 62, like over 6,200 left, you can go with like a cheap defense here. Like, let's just see what happens if you plug in like a, see where the Titans are. FanDuel have the Titans priced up. Oh yeah, they're $4,500. So they did. They already expected Wentz to not miss. So wouldn't really play them on FanDuel. Just don't really see any cheap defense this week on FanDuel that looks that appealing. Yeah, don't want to play the Lions. Don't want to play the Jags. Don't want to play the Jets. Don't want to play the Chargers, obviously. Don't really want to play the Bengals. Just to see if we plug in the Vikings. Don't want to do that, but at least with 76.50, so you're able to play a couple more studs. But I do like these 6 to start kind of at least start a first look lineup. But that's about it for the video. Thank you for tuning in. Best of luck, and I'll see you all next time.